Welcome to my Conscious Podcast. I'm Jessika Klingspor, and this is a podcast where we dive into our inner worlds and the incredible skills hidden inside us. It is a space for honest and meaningful conversations where our guests share their stories and insights from their life experiences and journeys of self-discovery. In this episode, you will find out a little bit more about me and my entrepreneurial journey and why I wanted to start this podcast. Stay tuned, and you will also meet my guest, Dr Marcia Reynolds. She's a pioneer in the coaching world, the author of 5 books, and has worked in over 43 countries. Listen to her story, how she turned her life into a success by choice after spending time in jail when she was 20. Thank you for watching or listening to my Conscious Podcast. Hello everyone, and welcome to my Conscious Podcast. I'm Jessika Klingspor, and I'm a Swedish entrepreneur living in Barcelona since more than 2 decades. I took a conscious decision in 2001 to leave Stockholm behind and move to Barcelona to start my life there from scratch. One of my better decisions, actually. But I can tell you that the road has been anything but straight, far from it. I'm a founder of many scale projects and started my first company in 2003, a destination management company focused on high-end corporate travel and high volume events, mainly from Scandinavia to Barcelona and later on 7 destinations in Spain. But in the midst of building that company, in the midst of creating my dream, I lost my connection to my higher self in the endless profit chase. And instead of creating ease for myself, I was creating dis-ease. Because it's true that we create our own illnesses. In 2010, I had to make a full stop because I was diagnosed with cancer. There is definitely a before and after the cancer, as the full stop made me dive even more deeply into my inner world than ever before. To really understand why I pushed myself so hard always in life. What was it? Was it programming, conditioning? What behavior patterns did I pick up from family, friends, school, society, that actually was automatic and not my own choice, really? Well, I was deep diving in these questions, and I was asking myself, who am I? Coming back into business after my illness was tough, as the conflict between my heart and my head became bigger and bigger. It was really growing, and that was a problem. How could I change the life that I had built up and at the same time earn my living? I took a certification as a coach and started to coach managers C-level in business, and was not a full occupation. I never left my other job with the events, but it was fulfilling. And in 2019, I started a collaboration with the Barcelona City Council to connect Nordic innovation to Barcelona ecosystem and innovation hub. I wanted to be part of something bigger than myself. I wanted purpose, and I needed to find out what was my why. And I figured out that in the big picture, I want to be part of the solution for a better and a sustainable planet. And then I'm talking about both outer sustainability and inner sustainability. So today I help conscious brands from the north to establish their businesses here in Barcelona. I also coach entrepreneurs and leaders in conscious business, how to create business through values, linking your purpose to your business. I'm passionate about the inner journey and inner development. And so last year, I was fortunate to be part of co-founding the IDG Barcelona Business Hub. This is part of the global movement of inner development goals that was born in Sweden. And together with 5 strong partners, it's Verify, the Swedish startup that I'm partnered with here in Barcelona, IKEA, SAD Business School, Impact Hub Barcelona, and United Partners, a PR firm that is represented in 60 countries. We want to showcase how to implement the inner development into the corporate sector and how it can accelerate sustainable business and success. So we are reaching out to leaders, future leaders, entrepreneurs and change makers and professionals, as we believe that the ripple effect will be bigger and more fast if we reach to the top immediately. for the leaders to then implement in their organizations and teams. And we are creating an amazing community through our events every second month in Impact Hub Barcelona. And through these events, like-minded and very engaged people are coming to connect. And I've already seen partnership being born as a fruit of this. Very beautiful. So why did I start this podcast? Well, I have met some pretty amazing people in my life. Some has become really good friends, some I have worked with, and some I'm still working with. So we all have this thing in common that we have made an inner conscious leader shift to be the change we want to see in the world, to be part of the bigger solution. So we all have this inner knowing that global change starts with self. And then when we plug it into the collective, real change and real magic can be created. Because we can't do it alone. We need each other. So I want this podcast to be a space for honest and thought-provoking and inspiring for others to listen to, meaningful conversations. Because we're all on the same mission, I believe, after all, to live our lives in the most true version that we can achieve, to be authentic. So it is my hope that we can transmute the darkness that we see in the world into light. So back on the show again, on the Conscious Podcast, I'm so thrilled to have Dr. Marcia Reynolds with me today. And Dr. Marcia Reynolds, she's a pioneer in coaching. She is coaching leaders, delivered leadership and emotional intelligence programs, and spoken in conferences for clients in over 43 countries. She was the former global president of the International Coach Federation and on faculty of 5 coaching schools in North America, Asia, and Europe. Outside the schools, she teaches coaching skills for leaders in organizations and government agencies around the world. She is the author of 5 books, including Coach the Person, Not the Problem, Breakthrough Coaching, Outsmart Your Brain, The Discomfort Zone, How Leaders Turn Difficult Conversations into Breakthroughs, and then Wonder Woman, How High-Achieving Women Find Contentment and Direction. She has appeared in many places, including Harvard Communications newsletters, Forbes.com, Psychology Today, Wall Street Journal, and she has appeared in business magazines in Europe and Asia, and she has also been on ABC World News. Her education includes a doctorate in organizational psychology and 2 master's degrees in communication and adult learning. Dr. Reynolds is passionate about expanding minds, uplifting hearts, and strengthening relationships to make a difference on this planet. You can read more about her work in covisioning.com. Marcia, I'm so pleased to have you here on the show. I haven't seen you for a while, but you look as radiant as ever.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for asking me, because I love seeing you as well.
Oh, that's so nice. And considering the early bird hour, you are living in Phoenix, Arizona, and it's 6 a.m. in the morning your time, right?
It is. I've been up for a few hours, got a little bit of exercise in, so I have the blood flowing and ready to go.
Oh, that is amazing. Is this normal for you to have meetings and podcast recordings or whatever at this hour?
Yes, because, I do a lot of work with Asia. And so I'm often starting 5:30. 6 is late.
Okay. So you're already warmed up for me.
Yes, I am.
That's nice. Well, it's been 2 years ago I met you in very nice circumstances in Ibiza. Our beautiful friends Zoran and Liliana made it happen because we were both part of a soul consciousness retreat. Yeah. And that was also an amazing opportunity and container to get to know a person for the first time. I mean, we were sharing our innermost stories there during 10 days. And I felt an immediate connection with you when I met you by the poolside. And we have kept in contact ever since.
Yes, amazing. It was so nice. It was so nice. It was an amazing, special event. But it was so great how we did find each other. So, yeah, I'm happy for that.
Yeah, me too. I'm really in the need of a big catch up because you have been very busy lately. You've been writing on your book, you've been releasing your last book.
Hmm.
But before we jump into that, because this podcast is about inner shifts and how we propel ourselves, hopefully, towards
Hmm.
a more true version of ourselves. And
Yeah.
I would like to, for you to bring us back in time, actually to the early days when you were 20 years old
Hmm.
and ended up in a very peculiar situation. You were in jail, and
Hmm.
I would love to know what happened and how
Hmm.
could you change your situation into something positive for the rest of your life.
Yeah. Jessica, even now, more and more, I find that the critical piece in our life is understanding how I define myself, not necessarily even who I am, but how I'm defining who I am.
Yeah,
Because that's what it comes from. That's the container to really know, am I really being myself? That's an unfolding, emerging awareness. But I think there's just a vulnerable time when we're uh, an adolescent approaching adulthood of trying to understand who I am as opposed to what my parents say and everyone else. And I was really struggling with that. It's like who am I? Why am I here? What
yeah,
purpose do I serve? And there wasn't any place to get answers for that, other than the people that you hang around with. And I ended up hanging around with a lot of people, a lot of it's hard to say. It's like adolescence. We weren't children, we were emerging into adulthood,
yeah.
but they were doing drugs, and I'm like, the whole thing of fitting in and belonging to a group. And that's
It happened to be
where I
them.
found. Yeah, and that's right. That's where I found myself. In fact, uh, before I even went in, I was married briefly. My last name, Reynolds, is my first husband's name, but because I had so much trouble with, ended up in jail, they wouldn't ever let me change it back.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Right, I didn't have any rights. So, yeah, and by the time I could, it's like, well, it's easy name, I'll just keep it. But so the spiral down, and once you start spiraling, it's so hard to get out on your own. Um,
Yeah,
and so by the time I was like deep in darkness, I was really, who am I? That question was even, I'm nobody. I'm nobody. And so I just, that whole, I'm just going to numb myself. And it didn't matter that in all honesty, even before that, um, I was always one of the top students and top athletes. And I always had what I could do. I had
yeah,
confidence in what I could do, but not within myself. And that was a distinction even when I was studying high achieving women, that confidence in what I can do is separate from who I am.
yeah.
So, I just got deeper and deeper into it, and I live on the border of Mexico. So, running drugs was kind of an easy thing. That way I didn't have to steal from people. I still had
Wow.
this little bit of, no, I can't do that. So, I ended up in jail. Um,
And you were
but
20.
I turned 20 in jail. I was
Wow.
19 when I went in. And, and I almost like accepted it as, because my life is worth nothing. I'm a failure. I'm no good. I can't accomplish anything. I don't know why I'm here. And so what was really interesting was the women that I was with. I'm like, okay, well, I have to like kind of fit in with this group, and so there were things that came forth. I could make fun of things. I made them laugh. I wrote poetry, which was something I did all my life. And I wrote poetry for them to give to their children, to their family that they were separate from. And I played a mean game of cards. So, and so I created these really strong relationships.
Yeah.
And that's truly, especially with this one woman who ran the biggest, meanest, scariest gang. She really liked me, which was a good thing. But she was the one that made the difference for me. So
Wow.
it was this one night when we had done something uh, that I was trying to make a difference in the jail and, just got us in trouble. Yeah. And so it's like I was just sitting and saying, see, whatever I do, it's useless. I'm a failure. I'm no good. I was just wallowing in self-pity. And she'd had it. She got up, she pushed me against the wall and said, "You have no idea who you are." She
Wow.
says, you're so smart. You're strong. You care about people. You're funny. You've got to get that in here of who you are, because that's what's going to help you make it out there. And that was the first time I had someone really look at me, see me for
Yeah.
who I am, not what I do. And so much in our life, it's what we do, what we can accomplish, but not who we are. And so I held on to that. I'm not going to tell you it was easy when I got out. Of course it wasn't. But I kept remembering, this is who I am. This is who I am. And I'm going to make a difference for people like she did for me. So it wasn't just that she gave me who I am, but she gave me a sense of purpose.
That's
And I
incredible.
said, this is my second chance at life. And I want to go out and help others identify who they are and how we can connect better on this planet. So that was the shift for me.
Yes.
And I still often forget that.
Yeah, of course. We live many
Right. We're
lives
all
in our
works in
life.
progress. Yeah.
Yeah, and keep evolving. But I mean, you had a lot of time for self-reflection there
Yeah.
inside the jail.
Right.
Yeah, but it's incredible how something
Mm.
like that, a
Mm-hmm.
peculiar situation like that, could be the life changer for you. That you met this woman
Totally. Totally.
and that
It
you
helped me go
did
back to
something,
school.
yeah, and you did something really good with it. It
Yeah.
was like, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think that was the big thing too,
Do you have
that kept.
contact with her today?
No, people always ask that, and it's like the day I left, I said to her, I'm not going to see you again. I won't see anyone. And she says, nobody here wants to see you again, ever.
Okay.
You're the one that
Got
can
the
go out and make a
message.
difference. Because,
Yeah.
one thing about that, Jessika, it wasn't that she gave me that, but she helped me to understand. I learned a lot about these people that have nothing, that have no privilege, that
Yeah.
some of these women, jail was the safest place they could be in their life.
Hmm.
Because being out on the streets was awful and they didn't have anything. And I had privilege that she didn't have. And so I understood that I
Yeah.
could go out and make a difference that a lot of them could not. So, I, I heard much later, she'd gone off to LA to do her drugs and be a prostitute or something like that, but that was the
Yeah.
only
Okay.
way that she saw of going through life. So I took that as I not to turn back,
Yeah.
not to
No,
turn
no, I
back.
understand.
Yeah.
And all these stories that we create that inhabit
Mm-hmm.
our brains. Um, you became an expert, and well, you studied neuroscience before it became trendy.
Yeah.
you you figured it out before that. I know you've been writing a book about it too. That
Mm-hmm.
instead of setting goals, it's actually you should ask yourself, how can I change behaviors? Because if we don't
Yeah.
change behaviors, we cannot set the goals.
Right.
But people don't really
Well,
understand that.
yeah.
Many of them, some
Well,
do.
again, I tie it into who am I? How am
Mm,
I defining myself? And what is it I want to create? And then who do I need to become to create that? As I shift into seeing who I can become, my behavior changes with it. if I
Yeah.
just try to focus on changing my behavior, like I'm going to quit complaining today, you know,
Yeah, yeah,
that'll last about
exactly.
5. Right. It's
Yeah,
like,
but yeah,
no,
people ask me how quick can you become conscious? It's just
yeah,
actually 1 second from being
yeah,
unconscious to conscious. But it's like,
right. For right now, for right now, for right
for
now.
right now. Yeah, and keep on doing your inner work. It's like to go
Yeah.
to the gym, no? But instead of
Hmm.
lifting the weights in the gym, you have to lift the weights from yourself,
The
shedding
muscle.
layers. But I
Yeah.
mean, you have been conscious about shedding
Mm.
layers all your life since
Yeah.
then. Are you still shedding layers?
I
Is there
think
still,
always.
yeah,
Always. Like I said,
yeah,
I know we're all works in progress. It's interesting. Recently, uh, in 2 situations, I had it pointed out to me that sometimes I get, uh, with people who are just starting out, I get impatient and condescending, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm doing that.
yeah,
Thank
you want
you
to
for pointing
fast
it
forward
out.
and help them
Yeah,
to
yeah.
speed
It's
it
like,
up.
what am I doing? Who am I?
Yeah,
And so we have to, because we have a judgy brain,
yes,
and we're always judging to protect ourselves. So what's right, wrong, good, bad, safe, unsafe. The brain does that automatically. And if we're not conscious, if we're not paying attention, then we're acting on the judgment that our
yeah,
brain is naturally doing. And so we get really busy and we're doing things, and it's like, oh, I got to do this. And so I'm a little annoyed, and then all of a sudden I'm not my best self,
no,
and we can blame it on our brain, but know that it's there. So I have to come back and say, okay, what is it? Who is it I want to be in this moment, in
yeah.
spite of my brain?
In spite of our brains, yes. And how can we slow down to speed
Yeah.
up? Because
Yes.
I mean, I've lived in cities all my life, smaller
Mm.
ones and then bigger ones. And I have an urge to live more close to nature now. Absolutely. Because I feel
Mm-hmm.
that it's in the cities that people just run, 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 run
Mm-hmm.
and live from the expectations of others, society.
Mm-hmm.
It's more challenging to peel off the layers that you picked up from childhood in a
Yeah.
city with all the
Yeah.
noise to
Well,
really listen to your inner voice.
yeah. Yeah,
Sorry.
but I remember at some point I was saying, Maslow had it wrong. He said when we get to the top, it's about self-actualization. And I said, yeah, well, you can go sit on a mountain and you could meditate and you could feel one with nature. But as soon as somebody walks up the mountain and sits next to you, then it's like, who are you in my space? So I said, it's self-actualization in the presence of others,
Yes.
not alone, because yeah, we can do it alone, but to be with others and to be
Yes.
self-actualized, that's the peak that we need to aim for.
Absolutely. I mean, I took a
Hmm.
trip in the 90s to be in a Buddhist temple in Asia to practice
Hmm.
vipassana meditation. It was
Hmm.
my, I think, my
Mm.
first awakening. And yeah, to be there inside the monastery and listen to all the wisdom was amazing, was
Yeah.
authentic. But they are also living there, the monks. Then
Mm.
to come back and bring that wisdom with you and to actually
Yeah.
transform it into and
Right.
maintain was more
And to get
tricky.
in traffic.
It's like to get in traffic. And after that, I moved
Right.
to New York, and that was like, it was very difficult to be in New York.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
but it takes practice, like it does with
Yeah.
everything, repetition,
Right.
and to be
Yes.
conscious about that repetition. To know
Right.
that if I don't do it, I might lose track again.
Yeah.
And this
Yeah.
is what you're
Well,
helping people with,
yeah.
expanding their
Yeah.
minds.
Yeah.
Could you tell me a
Well,
little bit more about that work that you do?
but first I want to say that, yeah, we are imperfect humans, and we can't beat ourselves up for falling into the impatience and the complaints and judgments, but just to notice it and shift it and say, look, isn't that fascinating? There I go again.
No,
you know
exactly. Because I've
Yeah.
noticed that there is a loop that
Yeah.
comes back. And when you
Yes.
start to observe that loop and you become
Mm-hmm.
the observer instead of the absorber,
Yeah.
the loop I can make it shorter. It comes back though. I can't
No, it
just
comes
take it
back.
away. It will always come back, but I can start to observe it and make it like go
Mm-hmm.
away
Yeah.
without resisting it like before. It was
Yes.
all about resistance. And now I can
Right.
sit with it and think, okay,
And
here it
then
comes
judging
again.
ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, why is this happening to me again? Thinking
Mm-hmm.
like the victim. And then you
Mm-hmm.
can observe
Mm-hmm.
that and choose to not be the victim,
Yeah.
to be the player again, and thinking, okay,
Yeah.
why do I cling on to that feeling, that emotion?
Right.
What good does it do to me?
Right.
Oh, nothing. So I decide I leave it. I let it go
Yeah.
then.
So I'll feel compassionate instead. Right. You
Yeah.
can be the victim of your brain or the master.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And I mean,
Mm-hmm.
the victim, usually they don't want to be part of the problem. They don't think it's their problem.
Mm-hmm.
But how can they be part of the solution then?
Mm-hmm.
If they
Yeah.
think that, oh, it's not my problem, because
Yeah.
that
They did
creates
it to me.
discomfort. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
But it's only the player that can actually be
Yeah.
part of the big solution, if because they
Right.
can consider themselves part of the problem.
Right. 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 I was hiking the other day with this gentleman who was like, kept talking about how his daughter makes him feel guilty. He doesn't want to do this. So she makes him. I said, you're choosing to feel
Yeah.
guilty. No, it's her behavior. It's like, well, okay, fine.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. And this is
Mhm.
like when you start to become more and more shedded your layers, and you know
Yeah.
more and more what is your true self, you can start to observe this in others as well.
Yeah.
And
Right.
that
But
awakening
as
process,
I
I
had
start
a
to like,
spiritual counselor say to me once, I was complaining about my boss, and she said to me, he's doing the best with the amount of light he has. It's just that his light is like this and your light is like this. And I'm like, yeah, that's it. And she goes, but you have the responsibility to model what big light looks like instead of fall into his. And I'm like, ah.
yeah, thanks for the reminder.
Yeah, right. But it's true, it's like you and I have gone on this path to truly understand and develop ourselves, but a lot of people don't,
No.
and they're just on this much slower path. And what can we do to help them move forward, instead of just judging them? Is they're clueless,
Exactly.
they don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, to
Mhm.
inspire them and to not to preach, because that
Yeah.
usually doesn't work.
No.
No. What do you do to in order to inspire people to, make
Yeah.
shifting up?
Well, I think that's what she had said to me was the most important, model big light, don't, right. Like I said to the guy, you choose to feel guilty. And it was truly, he wasn't there. And I'm like, for me to continue and try to teach him would have been a waste of time, so it's like, oh, okay. So I accept where you are right now. And just continue the conversation and feel like hopefully someday he'll work through that. So, it's not falling into their emotions. It's like we cannot get trapped in other people's emotions. That's the
No.
first place. Because if we do, even feeling bad for them, like the other night I was at this thing and this woman was like talking about, I don't know, everything was bad. And other woman kept saying, oh, it's okay for you to feel that way. Well, even sympathizing is getting stuck in their emotions, which just enabled her to keep complaining all night, you know? And then
Yeah.
she wonders why she struggles with relationships. So, um, yeah, yeah, right.
Well,
And I
you just
happen to
have
be
to
sitting in
ask.
the middle of them. So,
Couldn't you just address a smart question to her in order to flip?
right, exactly. So, what is it that would be helpful for you in this moment? Just even
Yeah.
asking that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
That could
Mhm.
probably make her reflectful and shut the fuck
Yeah.
up for a moment.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Ruining the
really
party.
interesting.
No, sorry,
Yeah.
my French.
Yeah.
Um,
But you
so
asked the question about,
yeah,
what inspired me on that. Well, when I left uh, uh, jail, and said I want to make a difference for people, but I didn't know what that was. And I also have found that out when I did my research, my doctoral research with smart, strong women, that we know we want to achieve things and we want to make a difference, but we don't know what it is. I call it the burden of greatness. Once I do something, it's like, okay, well, that must not be it. There must be something more, and we're restless and we keep looking. And that's why
but
it's
why are we
books,
keep looking for more and more? Why aren't
because
we
we don't
just
define it,
no,
and
exactly.
that's why I called it Wonder Woman. It's
Yeah.
like there must be something more. And um, I'm not, I said to be content with your discontent. I'm not
Mm.
sure that that's going to go away, but to understand ourselves, that we
Mm.
want to make a difference. Uh, we want to have purpose. We want to achieve things. And that's what drives me,
Yes.
so to understand it instead of judge it, because that just may be who we are. To say, what the subtitle, how smart, strong women or high achieving women find contentment and direction. They don't really find contentment. There is a
No.
trying to define enough is enough. I think it's not until we get older that it's like, okay, enough's enough. Let me define just what brings me most joy and focus on that. I'm not going to retire and do nothing, but if I can just
No.
focus on what gives me most joy in my work, and not think I have to adapt to everything. I think that was a big shift for me.
Yeah. And when
Yeah.
you're telling me this, I feel that many people think, and women specifically, think that somebody's going to come and rescue them. And
Yeah.
then
No.
so somebody's the only person that will save you is your healed self.
Hmm. Right. Yeah.
And when you
Well,
understand
and then
that,
there's that
maybe
difference
you can
again.
be more comfortable
Yeah.
with your discontent
Yeah.
when you
Yeah.
understand
Again, there's
that.
the internal and the external.
Yeah.
So a lot of the women, and me as well, again, we accomplish things. And so we're defining ourselves by what I can do. So even though I had that launch at 20, there was still, why am I here? What am I supposed to do? So I went and got degrees trying to figure it out. I was good at learning and getting
Yeah.
degrees. So, but that's still external. And, what
Yeah.
happened was my very first job, um, my first master's was in broadcasting.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, and so, I don't know what I thought. I thought I was going to do instructional TV or something. I don't know, documentaries. But I got a job pushing TVs around in a hospital, in a psychiatric hospital, So that's how I used my degree, to push TVs and show the nurses how to use film projectors. But it was for a training department. And
Yeah.
what happened was, my boss decided to get her doctorate, and she had fired the only trainer. So she dumped it in my lap. And my first assignment was management training. So it was
Wow.
accidental. I didn't choose my path. It just, like, it fell on me. And
It
so
happened
I
for you.
decided, yeah, I was doing it, and I thought, I like this. I like
Yeah.
creating training. I like working with people to connect better and to be a leader. And so I I decided to get my second master's in adult learning and instructional
Okay.
design, and that was the pivot, Jessica, because and then I went into high tech, running training departments, and I got very, very curious. What does it really take to change behavior, to change people's minds?
Yes.
And so studying behavioral change, and but even then, we didn't have the neuroscience. And so it was like, how can I inspire people to try things, to make it fun, all those things that only work for a short time,
Yeah.
and then they go back to old behavior when it's uncomfortable. So I kept
And
seeking, and I was, training people, leaders, and around the world. But it was the next job I had, and I, did this big cultural change with the company. We did all this stuff, but once we were successful, they're like, okay, we don't need that anymore. And I'm like, yeah, well, I'm not done. So, and I also hit the glass ceiling, they told me.
yes, I can imagine you
Yeah.
did.
Yeah. And so I said, okay, I resigned. And it was the day I resigned, somebody sent me this article on coaching. And I went and I watched a demonstration and I said, there's something different here. There's something different going on in the brain of this person, that they have this insight and the confidence to go out and do things. There's something different. So I signed up for a coaching school, and it
Mm-hmm.
was a year later that Daniel Goleman came out with emotional intelligence. And
Wow.
that's what got me interested in emotions and the brain, and the neuroscience was just starting. It
Yes.
was 1996, 97. And so I was curious about how do we change our minds and behavior? And that's why I got into it so early, because it was my curiosity,
Yeah.
and I found it with coaching. And I still am studying, the magic that happens when
Yeah.
we're just fully with someone, and just help them think about their thinking. We share what we hear and ask questions, and once they can analyze their thinking from an external person, because you can't do it yourself, um, that's when the light bulb comes on, and
Yeah.
then your brain rewires and changes. Where teaching doesn't quite
That's
do
so
that.
beautiful when that
Mhm.
happens. That is
Yeah.
really amazing. I think this was your calling, all this
Yes.
from the beginning. And then,
Coaching
you
found
had
me.
to, yes, and you had to zigzag through life to get all the experiences
Yes.
to be able to enter in this. And I think also, as a woman in those days, to get all that
Hmm.
nice curriculum for you was important, because reading the
Yeah.
papers, they could believe you. But then once you got
Hmm.
inside, you could
Yeah.
really make the change.
Yeah.
And
Well,
they would
I
listen to
feel
you.
like, right, all those corporate years were important for me. They were learning. They were, jail was a
That was
university.
also learning.
Yeah, yeah. I learned about people in a way I never would have before.
No.
How companies run, and what goes on with people was stuff I needed to learn before I came out on my own. It
Yeah.
gave me such a depth of understanding. And so, like when young coaches come to me and say, do I have to, work somewhere? Will they ever hire me? And I said, it's not about your credentials. Did you work in this company? It's about understanding what truly goes on. You have to experience it. You can't
Yeah.
just read about it. So,
We still have to live experience. There is no
yes,
shortcuts for that yet. We can't
right.
do AI and just put it inside us and then, no,
No.
not
Yeah.
yet, at least,
Well,
and hope
I
not.
don't know that we ever will, in terms of truly being able to truly connect
Yeah.
and be with these um, unpredictable humans that we're with.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Hmm.
So, what really keeps you going now? What are you curious about today and in the
Yeah.
future?
Well, it's so interesting because, um, so, uh, I do these online breakthrough coaching programs, and in fact, we have a mastery program just starting in a few weeks. And so we were taking my original foundation program and making it mostly self-study. And I had to watch 32 coaching demos that I had done since 2020. Right.
Wow.
And I'll tell you, Jessika, it's like the ones in 2020, I couldn't even watch, and
No,
now
because
I've
you
been
have also
coaching.
changed and
Yes.
evolved.
And I've been
Yeah.
coaching since 1996. And I'm like, so watching those from 2020 to 2023, I got to watch my own development in my presence and what I heard, and how quickly I could shift people
Yeah.
through what I shared back with them. But again, the shift of focusing on identity, what it is I truly want to change and create, and who I need to be in that picture. When I fully shifted into that, my coaching was much more powerful. But it took me, to really understand when is the appropriate time to move in with that, and really have that land for the client. It took me a lot of practice and understanding of myself.
Of
So,
course.
and again, I'm always a work in progress. So I'm always reading more, learning more, um, and sharing it. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I mean, you started to work on this, if I call it the old paradigm, which was dominated by masculine energy,
Mm,
competition rather than connection. And now we
yeah.
have already stepped into the new paradigm with more
Mm-hmm.
feminine, divine
Mm-hmm.
energy, more
Mm-hmm.
empathy, more compassion, connection
Mm-hmm.
again rather than competition. I think the world is more receptive for coaching now. And as
Yeah.
we implement it in the corporate space where it's really needed.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I do credit a lot to, the younger generations moving in and their demand to be seen, heard, and valued. I say, certainly when I was in the corporate world, it's what I wanted, but I didn't expect it. The people, the younger generations, and, that is actually in the last 20 years coming in, are saying, are expecting that from their
Yeah.
leaders: see me, hear me, value me. So, um,
And expressing it.
and right. And so leaders, I mean, maybe they don't understand the word compassion, but they do understand that they need to be present enough and not just tell people what to do, but to really see them. Who is this person in front of me? And how are they different? And what is it they really want? And to let them know, I do value you. I see you. I value you. And that's an energy. And that's when I said, not so sure AI is going to be able to master that, because
No.
it's that energy between that the person feels seen, heard, and valued, not by what you say, but who you are with that person. And understanding that that's how you motivate people. You
Yeah.
help them to want to give you more, because I feel seen, heard, and valued by you. So, again, we academically knew that years ago, but putting it into who we are in real life, we're just emerging into that space.
Yes. And also in the academic community, I mean, it's difficult to learn if you already know something.
Yeah,
And that it's actually a fact that they are starting to do research and science
yeah,
based like on this that
right.
before was woo woo stuff.
Yeah,
And they are
yeah,
translating it into,
yeah. We
corporate
can measure
language.
the energy of emotions. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
if I say to you, how can we rise our vibration? What does that mean
Mm-hmm.
to you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, there's so much with the neuroscience. The whole measurement of the electromagnetic energy of our emotions. Um, Also, that we can monitor activity in the brain.
Hmm.
And what really stimulates brain activity. And telling people what to do, and sharing your suggestions actually pacifies the brain.
Yeah.
But coaching, and especially when you're really, the sense of I'm here for you. So it's an energy, not just my coaching skill. Actually, the brain waves go off the chart all over the place. So
Yeah.
even that neuroscience has allowed us to prove the power of uh, coaching, and again, not just skill, but the connection. The I don't even like to call it mindset, because it's really body set. It's a full
Yeah.
body connection. Yeah.
Because we are born with the same inner abilities,
Mm-hmm.
everyone, but
Yeah.
not everyone is, training their inner skills. and in our
Right,
abilities.
right. The learned behavior doesn't support it. Sometimes
No.
squashes it. Yeah.
And so we are walking
Mm.
around with all this human design without knowing
Mhm.
what we can actually have the capacity of
Yeah,
doing. It's
right.
incredible, you know, a
Yeah,
whole humanity, a
right.
little
To
numb.
unleash it. Yeah,
But there is
right.
an enormous shift going on the planet now,
Yeah. You know,
rising
and
awareness and
I love Meg Wheatley's work, and you know, she's got a new book called Islands of Sanity that's coming out, I think, next week. Maybe this week. But
yeah,
you know, she says um the full shift probably won't happen in this lifetime. You know,
the
but
full
we're
shift.
here,
No,
she calls it, we're warriors of the human spirit. We're here to do the work
yeah,
in as much as we can to help people, to bring them to that higher level of consciousness, of awareness and love. And we have to keep on the path of doing that and create islands of sanity, you and I in an
yeah,
island.
and find the
You know,
others,
yeah,
find the
and so
others that we
yeah,
can,
yeah, and
you
bring them
know,
in, and that's how we
connect with.
motivate each other to stay present. So
Yeah,
don't think you're gonna change the world right
not
now,
in
because
that
you'll just get
sense.
disappointed. Yeah,
Yeah.
you'll just get
Now
yeah.
I keep focusing on
Mhm,
that I can change myself for the better,
mhm,
and then if I
mhm.
connect with others like-minded,
Yeah,
we can make
mhm.
that little minimal change that if we are many can be a big change.
Yes, yes.
And that's what keeps
And
me
it's
really
happening, it's just
and
slower
it's
than we want.
happening.
That's what
Yeah.
my boss used to tell me. He said, "You know, Marcia, I know what you're trying to do, but it's never gonna happen as fast as you want."
No, that's for sure not. I
I'm
think we
like,
share that in common, that we are patience is not our virtue. So
Mhm.
we've been training on our patience all these
Yeah.
years with
Breathe.
challenges, and it's like, yeah, it's exhausting sometimes, and then we can keep reminding ourselves with grateful
Yeah.
gratitude exercises
Mhm.
that okay, I'm still on the
Yeah.
path. You've
Yeah.
written a book, it's called the Discomfort Challenge, right?
Discomfort
uh,
zone.
a good
Yeah.
discomfort zone. And it was
Mhm.
a couple of weeks ago I decided to, that's why I said challenge, to put myself through a discomfort challenge, to do something
Mm.
that pushed me outside my comfort zone.
Mm.
At least I was thinking every day, but it's many times during the week, to
Mm.
actually, things that it's a little bit uncomfortable for me, and
Mm.
training myself to get more uncomfortable with the
Mm.
more
Yeah.
comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Was that, tell me about that book, because I mean that can help a
Yeah.
lot of people, I think,
Yeah.
to realize.
Right. Well, you know, my books are always, I write them, I'm inspired to write them when I find there's mm, what it is that's truly missing in our relationships and coaching. And at that point, I was working with a lot of coaches, and I found, and leaders, because the book is really kind of focused on leadership coaching. And I found so many coaches, they would get coach the person to this point, you know, of understanding. And then as soon as it started to feel a little uncomfortable or dangerous, they back off. And I'm like, "No, no, no, you're supposed to push him over the ledge."
Yeah,
You know, I mean, they didn't have the courage, you know, and they were worried of the impact. But what I know, you know, again, since learning is my field, that you have to have learning happens in the moment of discomfort, that there has to be a not knowing, and we're not comfortable with not knowing. We need to know. And so, you know, that already knowing stops us
yeah,
from the discomfort of uncertainty. But
because
if
our
we
brain
can,
are wired like that. No, we are
yeah,
just a
and but if we can
survival
coach them,
instinct.
yeah, to that moment of where they, oftentimes when they go, they have the insight, they'll be embarrassed, they'll gasp, sometimes they cry. That means there's an opening. They just saw something new.
Yeah,
Learning happens in the moment of discomfort. And so the book is about how do we fully coach people through these so they can come out on the other side and have this insight about themselves that will change their life.
yeah,
and not be afraid of discomfort. The best leaders make us uncomfortable, not comfortable.
No, it's true.
Yeah, right. So,
What do you
right.
think describes a really good leader?
Well, the thing is that the only way that I as a leader can pull you through that discomfort of learning to the other side is if you trust me.
Yeah.
So the whole I see you, I hear you, I value you, I'm here for you. When you sense that in me, then you'll allow me, to coach you, to challenge your thinking in a way that opens you up. So it has to be both. It cannot just be your coaching skill. It also
No.
has to be the presence and the care, and I tell leaders, it drives me crazy that companies still promote the best worker. And, I always say, don't promote someone to leadership who doesn't like people.
Yeah. No, true.
And because I work for tech companies for years and that happens so often. You have to know I care about you and I value you and I want you to develop.
Yeah.
When you sense that I'm here for you, then you'll allow me to challenge your thinking in a way that won't be comfortable, but will give you awareness and insight that you couldn't do on your own.
So
So,
how can they
yeah.
train to move from their head to their heart?
Well, it is training. It
Mm.
is training. It's not an academic thing. So, I do a lot of, you know what? Here's one of the exercises I often share is like this thing you always have with you, your phone.
Yes.
Open it up, and I bet you your screensaver is something that makes you smile and makes you feel good.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
pet, your family, and go to your pictures. It's your pet, your family, your friends, the sunrises, or you
Yeah.
on the journey you just took. Those are beautiful pictures. That opens your heart. Isn't it amazing? Know how that feels. Notice in the moment that those pictures, how they make you feel.
Yes.
That's an open heart. So, you don't have to go sit on a mountain and, you
No.
can uh, bring yourself into your heart space with things
Yes.
you have right here. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. No, it's so true.
Yeah.
Thank you for that reminder.
Right.
So,
That gives you the gratitude, the laughter, the peace that you
yeah.
need.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you give an example of a leader that was really challenging to coach and how you broke through?
Oh,
You have
well,
millions maybe.
uh, the often again it always comes back to who. So I had this guy that he really was the expert here uh, in my state of moving water around, which is, I'm in Arizona. It's essential that we know how to manage water. Um, we're in the desert, and he defined himself that way. In every meeting, it was like he was the one who knew, the already knowing.
But that is usual
He
with expert, isn't it? Experts
Well, right,
in a field tend to think that they're experts in everything.
right, right, and that's who I am. I'm the
Yeah.
expert.
Yeah.
So he wanted to be promoted to being a leader. He was put on a team of other leaders to come up with creative answers to some of their problems. When I started coaching him, I always do a live 360 where I go and I talk to people about how do you see their leadership qualities, what might they develop. And they all said, he comes into this meeting, we're supposed to be collaborating and coming up with creative ideas. He tends to interrupt and tell us what we should think, And so I went back to him. I said, you're not inspiring people to be more creative by always interrupting and being the expert. So define to me leader.
Yeah.
What is a leader? And he says, well, I don't know. I think a leader is the one who knows things. Well, what do you think? How do you think they would define leadership? And that's always the question. Because
Yeah.
I've had a number of people that they get stuck in it. It's got to be efficient or it's got to be this way. And he said, well, in that situation, what you're telling me is they don't see me as a leader. I said, no. So are you willing to give up being the expert in order to be the leader? Now,
And
it
what you
wasn't
say?
easy, but
Okay.
he started to have an awareness. When am I being the expert and when am I being the leader?
Yeah.
How do I need to be the leader? So it was a shift. Transformation takes time. Change is immediate, but transformation takes time. But
Yes.
he did earn his promotion. But it was all about who
Amazing.
I am in that moment, not what I do. If he did not shift who I am as a leader, he would not have changed his behavior.
No, I think the
Mhm.
listeners can resonate very much to this.
Mhm.
It's so nice to hear it being, like in a story when it
Yeah.
happened.
Well,
Yeah.
and even so, like I have a group of uh, men in this company, an insurance company, that are being prepared to their next level of leadership. So they have first line leaders under them. So I'm saying, okay, you're now a leader of leaders. Let's
Yes.
define what a leader of leaders is, because what is your main responsibility? Is it telling them what to do or developing them to be leaders? How does that differ? If you're a leader of leaders, who are you now?
Yeah.
So even that, moving up the ladder, the definition of leadership changes.
It does.
So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow. You know that they say that it's 7 generations back we carry on traumas and
Mm-hmm.
patterns from
7.
ancestors. 7 generations back, but also the decisions we take today actually
Yeah.
affects 7 generations forward.
Wow. Oh, that's fascinating.
And what is it that the work you're doing today, and what is it you
Mm-hmm.
would like to leave the legacy for 7 generations to come?
Ah, that it's not about what you're doing externally, the perfection of your skills and your achievements. It's who you are with others,
Hmm.
and so really looking at who do I want to be with other people. The deepening of your presence is so much more important than the perfection of your skills.
Wow. I think that was a beautiful ending to our session. I mean, you couldn't have wrapped it up in a more beautiful way.
Mm-hmm.
And I do
I know.
think that there will be other sessions with you because your experience is so grasped that we can't
I
fit
hope
it into
so.
one. Yeah, we can't fit it into one session only alone. Well, thank
Yeah.
you from my heart, dear Marcia, that you wanted
Yeah.
to be on this podcast and share
Mm-hmm.
your experience with the listeners. And is there anything else you want to say before we close?
No, I love it that people are here to listen because that means they're open to learning.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you very much. And to the
Mm-hmm.
listeners, we say thank you for listening. And we
Mm-hmm.
keep going with the Conscious Podcast. Thank you very
Yeah.
much, everyone.
Thank you.